Discover the incredible and touching transformation of Poseidon. 8 surprising secrets revealed. Avery Johnson stood knee-deep in the frigid waters off the coast of Maine, the wind biting at her cheeks as she watched the waves crash over the old shipwreck. Her heart raced, but not from fear. It was the swirling mix of excitement and anxiety that coursed through her. Today, beneath the salty surface, she hoped to discover remnants that would prove her worth. Would the crashing waves cover up her dreams just as they overran the wreck? Or would she emerge victorious, clutching a piece of history that could ignite her career as a marine biologist? The battered hull beckoned her closer, an echo of the estrangement she felt from her family. Her parents, buoyed by high-profile positions in corporate law and medicine, often prioritized success measured by traditional metrics over her unyielding pursuit of ocean conservation. Each conversation was a tightrope walk, with Avery perpetually balancing the expectations of her lineage against her desire to carve her own path. As she dove into the depths, uncertainty loomed larger. Could she navigate the turbulent relationship with her family while forging her destiny in waters female scientists seldom traverse? The undercurrent of pressure stirred as she found an ancient artifact mottled with barnacles and sediment thousands of years thick. Even as the shadows enveloped her, the relic gleamed with a promise, a mystery long lost to the depths. The whispers of Poseidon echoed in her thoughts as she meticulously examined it, the weight of her grandfather's tarnished legacy washing over her. He had once championed marine research, his reputation cruelly tarnished by a scandal, leaving his dreams drowned alongside the sunken ships he had pursued. The tarnish dulled not only his name but also hers, silently tethering her to a history she had never known. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. What could she reveal to them? The stakes climbed higher as her mind wrestled with the implications of her discovery. There was a chance she could use the artifact to illustrate the innovations that could redefine conservation efforts and, in turn, absolve her grandfather's name in the community, still holding fast to prejudices that ran deep. But as she prepared her findings for presentation, the shadows of familial expectations loomed large. Would she become the daughter they desired, taking a safe path, as her father often insisted? Each family dinner felt like a trial, especially when matters of her career arose thick with disappointment as her parents emphasized the uncertainties of her chosen field. She felt her fight grow, and yet, a gnawing doubt lingered. They had sacrificed so much. What right did she have to pursue a passion that seemed only to promise struggle? Avery reached a breaking point, standing on the precipice of exhilarating possibility and crushing self-doubt. As she prepared for a consequential presentation, reminders of her grandfather's faded honor taunted her. And just when she thought she had the upper hand, a last-minute scandal rocked her plans. Would she succumb to her family's ideals? Or would she stand firm against the storm the world had brewed around her? With everything in balance, she felt like a ship lost at sea, desperately searching for solid ground while uncharted waters pulled her deeper into the depths of her own identity. Avery clutched the artifact tightly in her hands, the barnacles rough against her skin, a physical representation of her internal struggle. The shipwreck's eerie serenity enveloped her, the echoes of the past whispering through the ocean currents. She had come to forge her own identity, yet as she stood at the precipice of discovery, an ominous shadow loomed over her. How could she transform this relic from mere debris into a beacon of hope and renewal? The artifact felt heavier now, not just with the weight of the ocean's history, but with the burden of her grandfather's dreams, entangled with her own aspirations. She could hear her parents' voices ringing in her ears, laden with disapproval as they questioned her choices. Their careers defined by stability and security seemed to mock her ambitions. What was it about the sea that called to her, luring her deeper into uncertain waters, while they battled the raging storms of corporate law and medicine? As the realization struck a kaleidoscope of ambition and dread, she swam to the surface, gasping for breath. Avery took a moment to steady herself, her heart racing with the thrill of potential amidst the choking fear of inadequacy. The imagery of the shipwreck, its decaying frame exposed to the elements, spoke volumes. Rot and ruin concealed stories waiting to be told. Could her grandfather's tarnished legacy provide the very foundation she needed for her own narrative? With renewed determination, she surfaced, her resolve solidifying. This was not just about her pursuit of knowledge but about redeeming a family narrative that had withstood the tides of time. Drawing a deep breath, she ascended from the water, leaving behind her former doubts and insecurities. The evening sun flooded her with warmth, reminding her of the strength coursing through her veins. Back on land, she set up her equipment, each movement an intentional act of defiance against conventional expectations. She would meticulously document her findings and create an engaging presentation that would inspire not just her peers, but bridge the chasm between her family's ideals and her own. Yet within that ambition lay a gnawing fear. What if she failed? What if she couldn't convey the significance of not only the artifact but her journey? The days leading up to her presentation felt suffocating, a suffusion of anticipation and anxiety mingling in the air. If only she could unearth more about her grandfather, reclaim the legacy he had lost. As she rummaged through family records, trying to piece together his past, she uncovered layers of narratives, one of resilience and passion, moments that displayed his love for marine life. Yet, buried beneath those vibrant stories were darker truths. The scandal that had tarnished his name was far more complex than she had realized. As she uncovered more details, a menacing realization bubbled to the surface. Avery saw the parallels between her journey and his, the struggle against societal expectations, the fight to carve out a meaningful existence amidst overwhelming pressure. This parallel fueled her resolve. She needed to present not just the artifact but the story behind it, a tribute to all those who felt unheard or belittled. As she put the final touches on her presentation, a tear slid down her cheek. For the first time, she felt the weight of her familial legacy shift. It morphed from a chain binding her to the past into a compass directing her future and the dim light of her modest workspace. She took a step back and surveyed her work. The culmination of her efforts lay before her, yet realization struck again. Would she stand firm when the opposition came, especially from those she loved most? The next morning, as she prepared to present, something unexpected happened. An email popped up, an anonymous tip linked to her grandfather's past, hinting at undisclosed truths that could change everything she believed. Would she uncover the missing pieces or plunge deeper into a tumult of uncertainty? Avery's pulse quickened as she stared at the email blinking against her screen, each second feeling like an eternity. The promise of undisclosed truths hung in the air, tantalizing yet foreboding. She felt the ground shift beneath her. The narrative she had been painstakingly crafting could spiral into a different direction. What could this new information reveal about her grandfather's past, and how would it affect her presentation? The anxiety of the upcoming moment mixed with the potent curiosity buried deep within her. She hovered over the mouse, her finger poised, debating whether to delve deeper into the murky waters of her family's history. Fear gripped her. What if the truths unearthed were far uglier than she imagined? What if uncovering these secrets tore down the last vestige of the legacy she sought to reclaim? Yet, the insight that her grandfather's life was more than a collection of failures spurred her on. She had to know. She had to explore the depths of his experiences because doing so could lead her toward understanding her own. Clicking the email open, her heart raced as she absorbed each word. The anonymous sender mentioned contacts in marine archaeology who had encountered oddities tied to her grandfather's research. Disgraced but not forgotten, he had left ripples that extended beyond his immediate sphere. Avery felt a mix of indignation and pride. She wasn't alone in her struggle. His story continued to resonate, beckoning her to pursue it further. With each paragraph she read, her determination solidified. She was sinking her teeth into a world far more complex than she anticipated. This was her chance to recraft not only her presentation but also her grandfather's image. She had to confront the shadows of the past with the light of truth. She meticulously noted names and places, piecing together a web of connections that spurred her onward as she darted around the desk, gathering her notes and preparing her equipment. Her mind flickered back to her parents' criticisms, whispers of disappointment echoing in the back of her mind. Avery shook her head, willing the memories away. She could not let their expectations define her narrative. The essence of her grandfather pulsed within her, and if she unmasked his hidden story, perhaps she could find clarity in her own path. She paused, a moment of vulnerability creeping in. Was she ready to expose the layers of history that had been shrouded in shame? What would it mean if these discoveries painted her grandfather in a different light, one that could elicit both sympathy and criticism? The complexity of her feelings threatened to overwhelm her as the prospect of revealing a tarnished legacy loomed larger. She breathed deeply, grounded herself, and resolved that vulnerability was the key. The truths she brought to light could shine brighter than any shadow. Time slipped through her fingers as she prepared to leave. Avery gathered her artifacts, her notes, and the email printout, clutching it all tightly. The sunlight outside cast a hopeful glow, yet it served as both promise and challenge. Would she have the courage to stand before her peers and confront the truths she was beginning to unravel? Today would not only define her academic career, but potentially alter how she viewed her family's legacy forever. As the university loomed in the distance, she felt quickening excitement intermixed with uncertainty. With each step, Avery's mind raced. She was on the brink of something profound, not just for her grandfather, but for herself. Would she emerge from this confrontation a stronger, more enlightened version of herself, or would the weight of expectation pull her under? Just as she reached the entrance, her phone buzzed with another email. Avery hesitated, instinctively glancing down to see a new subject line. You're in danger of uncovering more than you bargained for. Would this be the catalyst she desperately sought, or a warning she couldn't ignore? The email glowed ominously on her screen. Avery felt an icy wave of dread wash over her. The sender's warning echoed through her mind like a distant thunder, prodded at her apprehensions. What more could be lurking in her grandfather's past, and what consequences might surface from unveiling the legacy she fought so hard to reclaim? She took a steadying breath, closing her eyes briefly to visualize the purpose behind her quest. This wasn't just about her grandfather. It was about self-discovery. The remnants of her family narrative weighed heavily on her, yet she longed to break free from those chains. Each tick of her heart resonated with the desire for truth, for freedom. What had begun as an academic presentation had morphed into a personal pilgrimage. Compelled by curiosity, Avery opened the email fully, scanning for more than just the caution. The message warned her of hidden dangers and suggested a meeting with one of the contacts. A name jumped out: Dr. Lucien Merrick, a controversial figure in marine archaeology whose reputation had been a mix of brilliance and scandal. Regardless of her trepidation, she recognized that this was the opportunity she needed to delve deeper into her grandfather's story. Momentum surged through her as she started formulating her plan. Avery picked up her phone, heart racing as she dialed the number listed in the email. Dr. Merrick's office. A crisp voice answered. I'm Avery Carter, a researcher looking to discuss some findings related to my grandfather. I received an email about you and his work. Carter, your grandfather was an intriguing man. What exactly do you want to uncover? Details about his marine research, particularly anything that connects to oddities referenced in the email, Avery replied, her voice steady despite her nerves. Meet me tomorrow at the Marine Lab. Be prepared. The past we uncover won't be easy, he cautioned, and hung up before she could respond. A wave of resolve washed over her. She felt fear, yes, but it was not paralyzing. This was her chance to confront not only the shadows of her grandfather's reputation but also her own uncertainties. With each discovery, she could fortify her personal narrative, reclaiming what had long been submerged. She headed to her university. Avery's thoughts raced through all she had unearthed so far. She jotted down further notes, linking her grandfather's research with Dr. Merrick, envisioning the presentation that awaited her in the days to come. Each revelation felt like a step not only into understanding her grandfather but also embracing her own identity. There was an awakening within her, an embrace of the complicated, messy truth in which she had once wallowed in ambiguity. Arriving at the university, Avery could hardly contain her excitement, but she also battled the gnawing uncertainty. Each interaction with students and faculty felt like a balancing act. As professors and peers discussed their work, she felt the weight of judgment lurking, yet she focused hard on her goals. She had her own narrative now, one that beckoned her passionately forward. Later, as she's sitting in the lecture hall waiting for her turn at the presentation, her fingers danced nervously over her notes. She began to question whether she was ready to expose the deeper layers of her family's history. Surely others would judge her grandfather, the man she sought to highlight. But she steadied herself. By daring to wade into this complexity, she would redefine family, legacy, and identity. Then, just before she was to take her place at the podium, her phone buzzed again. Another email. A part of her wanted to ignore it, but another part, that burgeoning curiosity, urged her to look. Understand this. Some legacies are better left buried. Don't say I didn't warn you. Her heart dropped. A storm of determination battling against the fear rising within her. An ultimatum or a challenge. The stakes were growing, but so too was her resolve. This battle for truth was just beginning, and Avery was already committed to seeing it through. Could she shoulder the weight of her grandfather's past? The moment to find out was fast approaching. Avery's resolve wavered in the moments following the cryptic email. Sit or stand. Speak or remain silent. As she took her place at the podium, the lecture hall became a blur. The faces of her peers morphed into a tidal wave of expectation, each pair of eyes scrutinizing her more than her research. She began her presentation, voice firm yet tinged with uncertainty, articulating the nuances of her grandfather's marine research. As she delved into the details, she felt a sense of detachment. The work was grounded and solid, yet her emotional state was far from stable. The revelations she provided illuminated her grandfather's career, but she sensed an undercurrent of judgment surrounding the familial burden she carried. Halfway through, she paused, allowing herself a moment to redirect her thoughts. She couldn't just present facts. She needed to articulate the depth of the emotional excavation preceding this endeavor. My grandfather was more than his mistakes. In his pursuit of the ocean's secrets, he faced challenges that often drove him into the depths of controversy. With each word, she felt the chains loosening, transforming her anxiety into conviction. Sharing the complexities of her grandfather's legacy paralleled her own journey of self-discovery. As she unveiled the struggles and triumphs, she could hear the faint murmurs of interest rising from the audience. Afterward, as applause echoed softly in the hall, she couldn't fully shake the weight of the ominous warning from her email. It loomed as ominously as a gathering storm. She sought counsel from a trusted professor, a mentor who had always encouraged her intellectual curiosity. Avery, what weighs on your mind? He asked, sensing her internal conflict. She hesitated, twisting her bracelet nervously. It's about my grandfather. I thought uncovering his past would empower me, but now I don't know how much I can bear. Strength comes from grappling with the uncomfortable, he replied sagely. It's often in that tension that we find clarity. His words struck a chord within her, igniting thoughts of bravery, vulnerability, and strength. The meeting with Dr. Merrick loomed, and the more she contemplated it, the more urgency surged within her to face the shadows of her grandfather's history. With a mix of dread and anticipation, she resolved to embrace the impending confrontation. The night before her appointment with Merrick, she lay awake, contemplating the nature of discovery versus denial. What burdens lay covered beneath her grandfather's past? She recalled stories that echoed caution, shunned discoveries of deception, betrayal, and secrets once buried beneath the ocean's relentless surface. She scribbled notes, her fingers racing across the page. Perhaps evaluating these revelations could unearth her own hidden strengths, insights she had been too cautious to acknowledge. Within this personal reckoning, she finally grasped that facing disappointment was also an act of validation. Each doubt she confronted was a stepping stone toward self-acceptance. Avery drifted into a fitful sleep, dreams swirling with visions of the ocean, great waves crashing against the shore, hidden treasures glimmering beneath the depths, and the haunting call of her grandfather's legacy. The next morning, with the sun barely peeking through her window, she could feel the weight of her journey heavy upon her. This was not just about uncovering the past. It was about truly understanding herself. With her phone clutched tightly, she set out, determination igniting her step. The marine lab loomed ahead, a fortress of exploration and discovery. As she approached the entrance, a familiar trepidation settled within her, an intrinsic fear of unveiling truths greater than herself. But the reminder of her mentor's words propelled her forward. It was time to confront the ocean of uncertainties, not just for her grandfather, but for herself. This awaited moment could either shatter her perception or anchor her resolve. As she pushed the door open, the air inside felt charged alive with potential. Was she ready to face whatever secrets lurked beneath the surface? The truth about her grandfather's legacy was calling, and there was no turning back now. As Avery crossed the threshold into the marine lab, a wave of cool air washed over her, stirring memories of her grandfather's stories about the ocean's vastness. It felt like stepping onto a battleground where her knowledge and her fears would clash. The sounds of bubbling tanks and the rhythmic hum of machinery played a soundtrack, neither soothing nor entirely disquieting. Dr. Merrick was already in the lab, engrossed in examining a specimen under a microscope. His sharp features softened as he caught sight of her. "Avery, you're here," he said, motioning her over. "Let's dive in, shall we?" Her heart raced not from excitement but from a gnawing sense of urgency. Questions buzzed in her mind. What did Dr. Merrick know? Did he possess information that would shed light on the tangled legacy that loomed overhead like a dark cloud? As she approached, she caught a glimpse of a faded photograph leaning against the microscope. It looked familiar. A younger version of her grandfather, surrounded by colleagues, and a triumphant smile stretched across his face. It added to the complication of emotions swirling within her, pride battling the bitterness of secrets kept hidden. "Let's discuss what you've uncovered so far. I've seen your presentation. You're on the right path, but deeper implications await," Merrick prompted, shifting his focus back to her. Avery inhaled deeply, forcing herself to steady her racing thoughts. "I need to know everything about his work and the consequences that followed." The warnings in the email felt ominous. Merrick nodded, the lines of concern etching deeper on his face. "You're not just unearthing your grandfather's legacy. You're revealing the layers of a field eager to bury the uncomfortable truths about its pioneers. Many hide their motivations and methods. It's a common thread." Beneath the weight of his words, Avery's resolve hardened. It was not merely an emotional expedition. It was about unearthing the complexities of scientific integrity, both personal and professional. "Is it true that he was involved in unethical experiments?" she ventured, no longer able to keep the question unspoken. Merrick paused, his eyes reflecting the seriousness of her inquiry. "There were questionable decisions. Many did not align with the ethical standards that we uphold today. But understand this, Avery. Within that murky sea of morality lies a sea of potential discoveries." Her stomach tightened. Did she truly want to immerse herself in the darker chapters of her grandfather's life? She remembered her mentor's advice about grappling with discomfort and realized this was a crossroad, a chance to determine the course of her own identity and values. "I need to know how this affected lives, not only my grandfather's but also the people involved in those discoveries," she asserted, her voice stronger now, fueled by a fiery determination. Merrick leaned back, acknowledging the shift. "In that case, we must access the archives. They hold the truth, but it might challenge how you view him, your family." The challenge lay heavy in the air, pregnant with possibility but also shadowed by uncertainty. She contemplated the idea, feeling the weight of inheritance push against her chest. "I can't shy away. I owe it to him and to myself," she declared, allowing herself to clutch that inner resolve like a lifeline. In the moments that followed, Merrick led her to a hidden nook of documents and records, each one brimming with insights and, perhaps, toxic legacies. Avery picked up the first file, her hands trembling slightly as she began to flip through the pages, the ink on the paper becoming more than just text, but rather a manifestation of her family's complexities. What awaited her there could either deepen her understanding or crack the pedestal she had unwittingly placed her grandfather upon. As she read the first few lines, a chill ran down her spine, and she felt the ground shift beneath her. The uncovering had started, yet uncertainty loomed larger than before. Would she be able to reconcile her family's past with her future as a marine scientist? As she turned the page, the next revelation awaited. Would it be liberation or despair? The answer was just within reach. Avery steadied herself against the wooden desk as the yellowed pages flicked through her fingers like whispers from a forgotten past. The familiar scent of old paper, once comforting, now filled her with foreboding. Each line bled new truths, twisting the legacy she thought she knew. The first document detailed a sea turtle tracking project her grandfather had initiated in the 1970s, designed to gauge population decline. But as she read on, words like disregarded and lethal results stood out. The turtles had suffered inexplicably high mortality rates due to the chemicals intentionally released for experimental purposes. Her breath hitched. What had begun as noble intentions unraveled beneath the sheen of scientific progress. The truth gnawed at her insides, awakening a torrent of questions. How could he have weighed exploration against ethics? Were the findings he reported worth the lives sacrificed? She forced focus, folding the document as though sealing away the pain it bore. There was more to uncover, more layers to peel off. It was not just about her grandfather. It struck at the heart of her chosen path. If those working within the marine sciences tilted ethics in favor of discovery, was she destined to do the same? Merrick observed her closely, attentiveness entwined with concern. You're confronting a difficult reality, Avery. It's often those closest to us who challenge our understanding of right and wrong, he said gently. I thought I was stepping into greatness, just like he did, she replied, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. I never thought it could lead me into a moral quagmire. The pursuit of knowledge is fraught with complications. Many walk the line daily. You have a choice. Carve out your own path. His response echoed within her, raising the stakes and amplifying the conflict she was already wrestling with. What did creating her path entail? Did it mean upholding her grandfather's legacy at all costs, or dismantling it for the sake of integrity? Avery straightened, shifting her focus. Let us continue. We need to see more of these documents. With each subsequent file, the revelations grew darker. She stumbled upon a journal belonging to her grandfather, written in frantic scrawl notes speaking of sleepless nights grappling with guilt, moments questioning his very motivations and ethics. She felt exposed, as if she were peering into a wound that had never healed. Amidst the chaos, a new file caught her eye, centered around a controversy involving a marine organism he had engineered, known only by a cryptic code. Concerns of its potential hazards loomed, yet the thrill of innovation had clouded his judgment. Her pulse quickened, the amalgamation of genius and recklessness surged within her. She was unraveling the trajectory of a legacy riddled with painful truths. Still, the drive to uncover more was insatiable. She felt unsteady, horizon blurred as she grazed the edge of the abyss. Dr. Merrick, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. How do we know when a scientific breakthrough becomes just a facade for negligence? Merrick met her gaze with relentless patience. That's the question every scientist must confront. Avery, it's a duty to our field and to humanity itself. You must decide where your responsibility lies. Avery's mind raced. As she reflected, pieces clicked into place, illuminating her struggle to define her values against her steadfast drive for discovery. She could see a fork in the road, and down one path lay accolades, honor, and the company of her grandfather's silent spirit. The other, a daunting journey tainted by uncertainty but rooted in genuine integrity. The decision pressed heavily upon her chest, suffocating yet invigorating. She stood at the precipice of enlightenment. As she cast one final glance at her grandfather's handwritten words, a desperate mixture of pioneering ambition and moral introspection, a resolute fire ignited within her. Reconciling this legacy would not merely require her understanding. It demanded action. She felt the urgency to forge a new narrative. With newfound determination, Avery needed to confront the origin of those discoveries and engage the stories of those impacted. It was time to face not just the documents but the consequences of science itself. Let us find out who else was affected, she declared, the weight of her commitment clear. However, just as satisfaction began to settle, Merrick's phone buzzed, jolting her from her thoughts. His face paled as he quickly glanced at the screen. Avery, we may have a much larger problem at hand. Avery's heartbeat quickened. What further storm lay ahead? Was it connected to her discoveries, adding another layer of complexity? As she braced herself for answers, it dawned on her that the true battle within this marine legacy had only just begun. Avery felt the air grow thick with tension as Merrick's worry morphed into a palpable force. What is it? She demanded, urgency pressing her to the brink. He hesitated, clearly battling his own concerns. There's been a breach at the research facility. Data has been compromised. They found traces of tampering in the environmental reports you're familiar with. Her pulse quickened. What do you mean, tampering? Are you saying certain results were fabricated? Merrick nodded slowly, his brow furrowed in contemplation. Yes. And it might suggest something much larger at play, perhaps a deliberate cover-up regarding more than just your grandfather's work. An icy realization settled in. The documents she had unearthed, revealing the consequences of her grandfather's experiments, were merely the surface of something deeper. A conspiracy. Who would do something like this? She pressed, voice steady yet filled with trepidation. Those who stand to gain from the research organizations, possibly government sponsors focused on marine biology, he replied. Avery weighed his words carefully. The powerful could profit from spurious data, and the stakes were not just about their legacy. Do you think they know I've found these documents? I think it's possible. If they realize you're investigating further, they may see you as a threat. A deep knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach, but alongside it simmered a burgeoning defiance. This was not just about her, nor about her grandfather's tarnished legacy. The implications spread wide, threatening both the integrity of scientific discovery and the welfare of the marine ecosystems they sought to preserve. What do we do? Avery asked, already strategizing in her mind. Merrick's expression hardened. We need to gather more evidence before they can script a narrative that paints you as a liability. The truth can't be buried again. Resolute, she nodded. Her mind spun with mental choreography, jumping from the research findings they'd already studied to potential allies who might share their findings. We need someone within the facility, a whistleblower. Absolutely, Merrick confirmed, his replying nod infused with renewed purpose. The right insider could possess crucial information about how far this extends and who's complicit. Avery's heart raced not only from the looming challenge but from the adrenaline of taking action. She was no longer waiting for answers. She would initiate the push for greater accountability herself. They needed to identify those who had been affected by what her grandfather had initiated and gauge any lingering repercussions. Let us reach out to past employees or researchers involved in those projects. They might be unsettled enough to talk. Good idea. I'll start pulling together a list of contacts, Merrick replied, already typing furiously into his phone as they plotted their next steps. Avery could feel the dark cloud of uncertainty lifting slightly, replaced with clarity. She wasn't just fighting for legacy or truth. She was fighting for those harmed by the very experiments presented under the gloss of scientific advancement. Yet beneath their burgeoning resolve lay an unsettling thought: there were eyes watching, and shadows lurking. Would their efforts to shine light on the darker corners of scientific integrity put them in danger? The glimmer of courage battled the dread in her heart. Avery understood now that the hardest battles yielded the most profound transformations. She needed to be ready to confront whatever awaited them, to challenge not only her grandfather's legacy but the overall framework of scientific ethics. Let us move swiftly. Every second we waste gives them the opportunity to maneuver, she declared, her voice as steady as steel as they prepared to launch their inquiry into the depths of a convoluted history. A message pinged on Merrick's phone, a photograph attached, a familiar location. Avery felt her blood run cold as she recognized the building, deep within the research facility. Her decision to expose the truth was going to lead her straight into the heart of the storm. Would she be ready for what she might unearth there? The realization hung heavy in the air. She was diving into an abyss of secrets, one that tested not merely her resolve, but her very identity. What awaited her on the other side? The hum of the fluorescent lights echoed in the empty hallway as Avery and Merrick stood before the research facility's entrance. The place felt like a labyrinth of knowledge and hidden corruption, the air charged with unspoken truths that lay just beyond their reach. Avery glanced at Merrick, their shared purpose knitting their resolve together. "Are you sure about this?" Marek's voice broke through her thoughts, his eyes searching hers for confirmation. Avery took a deep breath, allowing her determination to fuel her reply. "We have to see what they're hiding. If this conspiracy goes deeper, we need to uncover it. For the sake of everyone affected." As they stepped inside, she noticed the peeling paint and flickering bulbs, a stark reminder that the institution they had once revered was now tainted. Each echoing footstep felt heavier, as if each stride carried the weight of her grandfather's legacy and the lives he inadvertently impacted. "Let us stick to the plan," Merrick said, pulling out his phone to check their contacts list. As she followed him, adrenaline coursed through her veins. The dark corridors seemed to whisper secrets, warnings, perhaps, about the risks they were taking. "Avery," he began, pulling up a name. "This former technician, Samuel Turner, worked directly under your grandfather on the marine projects. He might have insights into the data manipulation." She felt a rush of hope mixed with apprehension. If anyone would know how deep this goes, it's him. Thoughts darted through her mind. Would he be willing to talk? Would he even be safe to approach? Determination settled in her chest as Merrick retrieved the contact's number. She had begun to open the vaults of potential allies, and some part of her thrived on the challenge. It felt almost as if she were building a bridge out of the fragments of her grandfather's tainted reputation. However, as they approached the exit, a sudden commotion caught their attention. They exchanged glances. The frenzied voices were getting closer. The instant shifted from relative calm to palpable tension. Avery's heart raced as raw instinct flooded her thoughts. "We might need to hide." Just as they slipped behind an unoccupied office door, Avery's heart hammered louder with each footfall she heard approaching. She pressed her back against the cold wall, desperately hoping to steady her breathing. "Do you think they're onto us?" Merrick whispered, his forehead gleaming with perspiration. "Maybe," she murmured, her mind racing through contingency plans. "We should stay quiet until we know what is happening." Moments stretched out as they listened intently to the shuffling outside. Voices sounded irate, urgent. "The data breach must have come from somewhere inside. We can't afford any leaks." One voice echoed, coated with authority and a palpable threat. Avery felt the full weight of her vulnerability. This wasn't just about her grandfather anymore. This was a clandestine battle against shadowy forces that could easily stifle them. A sliver of fear intertwined with resolve. Could she really stand up to whatever was manipulating the truth? "Do you know what this means?" Merrick whispered, eyes glinting with a mixture of alarm and clarity. "They've identified a breach, which means our inquiries are already at risk." "Yes," Avery said, her voice nearly inaudible. "But it also means we're on the path to something significant. If we're careful, we can uncover what they hope to keep hidden." As silence returned momentarily, the realization dawned on Avery: the risks she had to take weren't just about protecting her grandfather's name. It was also about her own evolution as a scientist and a truth seeker. She felt the stirring of audacity in her core. Armed with knowledge, she wouldn't shy away. She would confront the darkness. They stepped out from their hiding place cautiously, resolute not to let fear paralyze them. Avery glanced at Merrick as a silent agreement passed between them. They were in this together. Avery's thoughts raced as they made their way down the hall and toward the exit. "This isn't just about the investigation anymore. It's about us reclaiming our agency." "Exactly," Merrick agreed, a fire igniting in his eyes. "We will expose them." But even as they solidified their resolve, she felt a nagging dread their actions could provoke powerful adversaries. Avery's determination flickered with anxiety, the line between courage and recklessness thinning dangerously as they stepped outside. A new urgency flooded her mind. "Next, we meet Samuel," she instructed, her voice gaining strength. But we have to tread carefully. The hunt for the truth might unleash forces we're unprepared for. The weight of the unknown loomed as they began their pursuit, but within her, something began to unfurl, whispering that the battle for integrity wasn't merely external. It was a fight for her own identity. And then an unexpected notification on Marika's phone drew them back. A new message that changed everything, a name familiar and troubling. Someone Avery thought she could trust. Would their next move tear down the last protective barriers she had? Avery's heart skipped a beat as she read the name on Marika's phone. Dr. Lisa Green, a respected marine ecologist. Lisa had been a mentor of sorts during her undergraduate studies. A sudden wave of doubt washed over her. Could she truly rely on someone from the system she was trying to expose? Are you sure we can trust her? Avery asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. Merrick considered her for a moment, his expression contemplative. She led initiatives on ethical research in marine biology. If anyone can help us navigate the waters ahead, it's her. Avery bit her lip, torn between the need for guidance and the fear of further entanglement with authority figures. But the urgency of the situation loomed too large to dismiss. They needed insights that the archives wouldn't provide. Let us call her, Avery finally decided, her voice firm. She took a deep breath, channeling the mixture of excitement and anxiety that had become her daily companion as Merrick dialed. Avery focused on her motivation, unearthing the very truths that had haunted her grandfather's legacy, and perhaps even crafting a new course for her own future. With each ring, anticipation gripped her. She was poised for the revelations that could change everything. Hello? Lisa's voice crackled over the line. Dr. Green, it's Avery Carter. She felt a surge of warmth mingled with apprehension. I need your help. We're investigating some discrepancies related to my grandfather's research. After a pause, Lisa responded, curiosity expansive in her tone. Your grandfather? I remember him. He had a promising career. Avery swallowed hard, the memories of late-night conversations with her grandfather flooding back, reminding her of the complexities of his legacy. There are documents that suggest unethical experimental practices, and we've also just uncovered a possible data breach related to those projects. What? Avery, that's serious. Can you come to my office? We need to talk face-to-face, Lisa replied, her voice now layered with urgency. Absolutely. We're on our way, Avery affirmed, adrenaline pushing her forward as they made their way through the winding streets to Lisa's office. Avery reflected on how far she had come. Just weeks prior, she stood alone, apprehensive of her own ambitions, woven tightly into her family's expectations. Yet here she was, stepping into the very heart of a conspiracy not just for her grandfather, but for the ethics of a profession steeped in challenges. Once they arrived, Lisa greeted them, her demeanor radiating the warmth of a mentor with the keen sensibility required for the truths they sought. The intensity of the situation between them wove an unspoken bond. They were all in this together against the tides of uncharted revelations. As they shared the information unearthed, Avery felt liberated. The burden of her grandfather's past transformed from a shackle to a foundation upon which she could rebuild. We cannot let this continue unchecked, she asserted, her conviction echoing through the room. Lisa nodded thoughtfully, her brow furrowing. Research can be a double-edged sword. Those who hide behind progress often compromise the very essence of integrity. We have a responsibility to expose this. Their conversation grew into a robust discussion about the ramifications of their findings. Avery considered Dr. Green's perspective, which illuminated the path forward. This was not just about protecting her grandfather's name. It was about advocating for integrity in marine research. In that moment, she felt a shift. No longer was she tethered to the past. She was actively participating in the future of marine science. With renewed purpose, they assembled a plan, leveraging Lisa's knowledge and networks to reach out to others who had been touched by the ripple effects of her grandfather's legacy. Each conversation felt like stitching a new narrative, one that could mend the discrepancies of the past and illuminate the path forward. Days turned into frenetic weeks of gathering evidence and uncovering new contacts. Avery spoke to former colleagues of her grandfather, witnessing the complexity of their stories emerge, each heartbreak, each victory, accumulating into a tapestry of truth that she was now determined to weave. Finally, the day arrived when the culmination of their efforts was ready to bear fruit. An assembly was called among ethical scientists in marine biology, those who could lend their voices to the cause. Avery, now emboldened, was about to stand before them and share not just the findings surrounding her grandfather's legacy, but a collective vision for a more ethically grounded future in ocean conservation. As she adjusted her notes, the weight of expectation flooded back, but this time, it felt different, empowering, instead of crippling. She wasn't just reclaiming her grandfather's narrative. She was furthering a movement that had reached beyond her family, encapsulating integrity, compassion, and stewardship for the oceans. With each word she spoke that day, as she reinforced the idea that true scientific progress must never come at the expense of ethics, the applause that reverberated through the chambers felt like a standing ovation for her reclaiming her identity and her family's legacy. Avery emerged from that space, her spirit buoyed by conviction and accomplishment, two cornerstones to the identity she had painstakingly established. On her way home, she allowed herself a moment to bask in the deeply satisfying realization. She was not just a descendant of a scientist. She was a pioneer leading the charge toward a brighter, more ethical future in marine research. With her head held high and confidence swelling in her chest, Avery knew that she had not only succeeded in her pursuit of truth, but had transformed her family narrative, one that would inspire and challenge future generations in the world of marine science. Embrace the journey. Begin your own transformation today. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that spark change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and empower those who seek to know and grow. Share this message instantly with at least 5 friends who need to uncover their own narratives of resilience. Don't wait even one more second. Support the channel. Your impact starts here.